Eccoci qui, allora buongiorno a tutti e grazie per essere qui presenti. Oggi avremo modo di approfondire insieme il tema della bioacustica e di conoscere più da vicino quelli che sono i prodotti che abbiamo fornito al Ministero per quanto riguarda sia lo studio dei chirotteri, in particolare il song meter mini BAT 2 e per quanto riguarda gli uccelli il song meter micro 2. E oggi abbiamo qui con noi Mona Dos, che è della Wildlife Acoustic, vicepresident Business Development, che risponderà alle vostre domande, quindi quando volete alzate pure la mano, di modo che non facciamo tutto alla fine, ma altrimenti poi ci perdiamo. Se c'è la necessità, se avete un dubbio, alzate pure la mano e lei vi risponderà. La relazione di oggi verrà spiegata da Paul, che è collegato dall'Inghilterra. Paul è un biologo specializzato proprio in chirotteri che solitamente appunto si occupa di fare conferenze insieme alla Wildlife Acoustic un po' per tutta Europa e lui è appunto un eccellente consulente, formatore dall'Inghilterra. Niente, grazie a tutti insomma per la partecipazione, buon lavoro e direi Paul, if you want, we can start.
Thank you very much. And I apologize, my Italian is not very good, but buongiorno, that's about as far as I can get. If I'm speaking too quickly, please just shout at me and I'll slow down. If there are things that you don't understand, please ask questions. The whole idea of this is you ask me as many questions as you want. So I can be here all day. So, so I'll continue, but before we oh, is my computer working? There we go. Before we begin, there is something that you might want to download onto your phones, and it's an app called the Song Meter Configuration app, and the symbol looks a little bit like this. It's free, and we might we'll use this app at some point during this session, and if you have a recorder as well, then even better. We can come back to this later because we're not going to do this for a little while. The other thing to download as well, but in your own time, and I will give you these slides, is the Wildlife Acoustics SM Mini and Micro Configurator. It's a desktop program. And again, I will show you this later, but you might find it easier to use this over this. So it's entirely up to you, but we'll come back to this a little bit later. I thought I'd just talk a little bit about wildlife acoustics, but just for 1 minute. So we've been designing and building recorders for wildlife for over 20 years. And believe it or not, there are 150,000 recorders all over the world. A lot of them now in Italy. You've got a lot of recorders there. But they are on all 7 continents. We have them in Antarctica, as well as everywhere else in the world. We have a grant program, and we've given away over $300,000 worth of equipment since we started that. And we have free online training, very similar to this, but it also means that if there are any people that want to know more about bioacoustics after today, how to analyze some of this data, then there are lots of webinars that are free, but we would also run them specifically for you as well, so if there's anything that you really want. We produce lots of things. You might recognize some of these, especially this one here and this one over on this side. Lots of boxes that we put out in the field to record different animals. We record anything on land that makes a sound. I think is probably the easiest way of explaining what we do. We'll come back to some of the little green boxes later. So what we're going to cover today is what is bioacoustics and how do we record sound? Because if you know how you record sound, it makes putting out recorders a lot easier because you understand how sound reacts with the environment and is affected by the environment. Our main focus will be on the equipment and how we set that up, as well as how we deploy these. And then if you have any questions, I've put this at the end, but if there are questions as we go along, please ask them. So, what is bioacoustics? These are just two definitions that I got off the internet. One's from the Collins Dictionary and the other one's Wikipedia. But they kind of say the same thing. And I like the Wikipedia one best because it's saying it's a cross-disciplinary science that combines biology and acoustics. So we're combining two things. We're combining the expertise of biologists and the expertise of acousticians. And you approach this from either as a biologist or as an acoustician. So we're always learning. A bioacoustician is always learning. I'm from a biology background, so I've had to learn the acoustic side of things, and I think that's probably what most people do. And when we're thinking about sound is a part of our environment. If I play this clip, I don't know if you can hear this. Hopefully you can hear this. But even though we might want to record wildlife, maybe this is an oyster catcher, this bird that you can hear. Is it going to make a noise? There you go. There are other things within that environment. There's geophony, or we call it geophony, which is the land and the waves and the rain, that sort of the geographical environment that's making a sound. We also have anthrophony, which is humans, people talking and chattering or driving cars. We have that sort of sound as well. And then we have the biophony, which is the thing that we tend to want to record. So they're all mixed together, and this is what makes sound recording sort of quite difficult, but not impossible. So I thought I'd do some real basic principles of sound, how sound works. So this is going all the way back to your school days when you were in those science lessons, physics, but it's very easy to understand. So what sound is a form of energy, and it's a form of energy caused by vibrations. So when something vibrates, it moves air particles, and those air particles knock or collide with other air particles. And the more of these that occur, we then start a sound wave is formed. And that sound wave keeps going until it runs out of energy. And if there's an ear or a microphone in the way, then these vibrations can be heard or recorded. So when we look at a sound wave, this wavy line on the left is how we sort of record a sound wave, and they're sound pressure waves, they're called. And you can see here that I've got a speaker which is moving backwards and forwards, causing an increase and decrease, so high and low level of pressure. And really, although we have this line here, this is probably a better representation of what sound looks like. So what we've got here are lots of particles close together and then far apart, and close together and then far apart. And it's these, this is the high pressure and then low pressure. Now, you don't necessarily need to know all this, but this is kind of quite essential. This is part of how we measure sound. And we measure sound in two ways. We measure the frequency, which is probably what we're going to be using a lot of, and we also measure the amplitude, how loud something is. So the frequency is how high or low something is, and that's represented by the number of these waves passing a fixed point in a unit of time. And the amplitude is how loud it is, so how big the sound wave is. So the more waves that we have, the higher the pitch, the higher the frequency. The fewer waves we have, the lower the pitch, and we're down here at the bass end. So higher the pitch, soprano, lower the pitch, bass. Frequency is measured in cycles, and we call this hertz. 1,000 cycles or hertz is equal to 1 kilohertz. Okay, makes sense. And what we call ultrasound, so anything, when we're talking about ultrasound or ultrasonic sound, we're talking about bats and things that are making these really high-pitched sounds. Generally, anything above 20 kilohertz is ultrasound. Infrasonic sound or subsonic sound is anything below 20 hertz. And these measurements just happen to be the human hearing range is between 20 hertz or 20 kilohertz. Or it was. Now, and I don't want to insult lots of people on a call. I think there's 80 people or 32 people. So we are all old. You know, the older you are, this top end of your hearing here deteriorates, so it gets worse. And so we can't hear 20 kilohertz anymore. Children can hear 20 kilohertz, but we can't. So we just have to remember that when we're trying to listen to bats, we can't hear them. So this is an example of a frequency change over time. So this is going from high to low. So this is going boo. That would be the sort of noise this is making. Other principles, and these are probably the more important. So sound loses energy as it travels. We call it attenuation. If we turn something up, that sound will travel further, which is good. But this is the most important one here. Low frequency suffers less from attenuation and can travel further than high frequency sound. So low frequency sound travels greater distance than high frequency sound. And it's why that on the coast we get foghorns instead of fog tweeters. So we get those low sounds. That's why elephants can communicate over kilometers. So when you're putting recorders out and you get things like owls, those owls are probably calling over maybe a kilometer. Whereas you get a tiny songbird, which is a slightly higher frequency, and that's probably 50 meters. So this really does matter when we're recording sounds, that those low frequency sounds we're going to pick up a lot further away. And here is our amplitude over time. So this is a loud sound getting quieter and quieter. Right, the basic principles of sound, and we'll come back to some of those. But I thought we'd look at the equipment that you've got. I don't know whether you've got any of these in front of you. Don't worry if you have. If you haven't, it won't matter. You can rewatch this video. We can go through how we program things. But you've got song meter bat 2s, so song meter mini bat 2s, sorry, and you've got song meter micros. And as far as I'm aware, so there's two versions of the mini bat. As far as I'm aware, I think you've all got this one with AA size batteries, so these mini batteries, and you can put 8 batteries in there. There's another version we do with the lithium batteries, and they're called 18650 batteries. They're huge, but I'm assuming that you've got these ones. So I'm going to go through what they've got on them, and then we'll look at some more principles of sound, and then we'll look at how we're going to program them. So the mini bat 2 has got an ultrasonic microphone, and we can have something called ultrasonic triggering, and this is designed for bats. So the unit will sit there and wait for a bat to start making a noise, and then it will start recording. And then when the bat goes away, it stops recording. So you end up with lots and lots of tiny files with bats on them. It's got a power switch. We can turn it on or off. I will go through these in a lot more detail. Both of these units you can program from your phone, which is why I asked right at the beginning that there's an app that you can download. It's got some little flashing lights which tell you what the unit's doing. We have a memory card slot. We can put up to 2 terabytes of memory in there if you really want to. You don't need to put 2 terabytes in. That's a lot. I think a 2 terabyte memory card costs more than the recorder. So don't buy 2 terabytes. We can turn this one into an acoustic recorder. Even though it's a bat recorder, we can put another microphone on there and we can record other things like birds if we want to. So because you've got so many of these recorders, this is worth noting as somebody steals some of your micros, your acoustic recorders, and you need to replace them. Well, these could do that as well. You're going to get 500 hours of record time. Okay, so this is not how long you leave it out for. This is the time that it's actually recording. So if you're just recording bats at night and we're just recording, say, 10 hours a night, then this will last 50 nights. So just to make sure that you know how long it's going to last for. The other version, the lithium one, is over 1200 nights. There's something called sample rate, and I'll explain what that is a little bit later, but this is the frequencies it can record up to. So on an ultrasonic microphone, which is the one that's built in, we can record at really high frequencies. The acoustic microphone, we don't really need to talk about because we haven't got that plugged in. But if you open one of these units up, this is what we have. The ultrasonic microphone is on the side. I don't know if you can see my screen as well as me, but I can show it you when we've got it in hand. But I've got one here on my desk. We've got an on-off switch. We've got a pair button. So this pair button pairs the device with your phone or tablet or whatever you're using. We have an acoustic microphone port. This is where we can put another microphone in there. Yes.
Screen is not sharing anymore.
Oh, it is. Let me stop sharing and stop sharing. Share. Can you see that? Yay! Excellent. Thank you, Mona. I don't know what happened there. So we've got an acoustic microphone port. Here's our SD card slot. We've got a function button, which allows you to program it in the field without your phone. But hopefully you will all remember your phone whenever you're setting these up. And then we've got these status lights. Oops. There we go. So if I look at the micro is very similar. There's an acoustic microphone. It has a power switch. It has a pair button. We have those same lights. We have a micro SD card. Again, we can put 2 terabytes in there. Don't put 2 terabytes in there. It's too big. These ones, though, we get a much lower recording time because it only takes 4 batteries. So we get 280 hours record time. It's small, and it can record higher frequencies. So we can record things like insects and small mammals, which are between that ultrasonic and acoustic level. So the sample rate is not as high as the bat microphone, but it's still very, very high if we want to go up that high. So if we look at the unit, this is the microphone here on the front. the acoustic microphone. And then these are very, very similar. We've got a micro SD card slot here. We've got some status lights, so we know it's working, an on-off switch, and a pair button, so we can pair it with our phone. So those are kind of the units. We'll look at them in a lot more detail in real time. So I'm going to do a demonstration in real time, what could possibly go wrong. So when we're setting up a recorder, there are things that we've got to remember and we've got to consider. The first thing is the recorder choice. You know, are we trying to record bats, or are we trying to record birds or insects? What are we trying to record here? And that matters. We've got some settings, such as the recording format, gain settings, sample rate. I will come on to what all these mean in a moment. Whether we want to sample over time or whether we want to sample over space. So we're taking samples of data rather than recording continuously. And what do we know about the thing that we're trying to record? I mean, your situation is so different from most people's because you have so many recorders. So you're going to be answering lots of questions rather than maybe just one or two questions. And then what are your expectations? Now, I would say that this applies to everybody almost, except maybe you, because you have like a specific task that you want to do. So can we create a single deployment design to apply to all recording situations, to put these recorders out and it will record everything that we want it to record? No, we can't. We need to be able to tailor these for a specific need. And what people tend to do is that they get some recorders, they get very excited, and they put them out in the field. They collect some data, and then they want to undertake some analysis to come up with their outcomes. And really, it doesn't work like this, because we actually need to know some of those questions or answers to some of those questions before we put things out. So we need to know, what are our likely outcomes? What are we trying to find out? And then the next big question is, how will the data be analyzed? You know, is this going to be a machine learning exercise? We're just putting it through some automatic recognition, or have you got a team of people that are going through every single sound and writing it down? You know, that will really impact on how long you want to record for. You are recording for so long because you've got so many recorders. What are the environmental conditions that you're putting these out in? And what recorder and setup is the most appropriate to facilitate these? And then we can go through our standard approach. Once we know that, we can then put out our recorders. And the things that are likely to influence our recorder setup are things like this: the species composition. So the species that is in the environment that you're trying to record in. Are you trying to find out, you know, whether just something's there or not? Is it just presence, absence? Are you trying to look at behavior? And from any of that, you need to know either you're a species or your environment, if you're trying to record your environment. So how often does your species or environment of interest, how often is there a noise? When does it make a noise? You know, is it nighttime, daytime? We have a lot of bat detectors here, so obviously you're going to be going down the route of doing some recording for bats. Generally, bats tend to be flying around at night, so we don't want to waste battery life by recording in the day, for instance. And what type of noise does it make? Does it make an ultrasonic noise? Does it make an acoustic noise? Is it somewhere in between? And so then we look at the study type. What is the length of the project? How accessible is the study area? Your area is probably bigger than anybody's that I've ever met. So you've got a good big study area. who's involved in the study. You're doing the right thing by bringing everybody together in one place and talking how we're going to be putting these things out. A lot of the time we're using volunteers who've just picked up a green box and they don't know how to put them out. Sometimes we're using professionals that do it every day. So it really, looking at who's involved in that study really affects how we put them out. And then again, how the data is going to be analyzed. So when we're looking at our species, we need to know a little bit about it. And it could just be time of day, time of night. They tend to make a noise. It could be how high pitched they are, how low pitched they are. You might not know. So on this picture here is the Loch Ness Monster in Scotland. We don't know what sound the Loch Ness Monster makes. We have no idea. It could be ultrasonic. We've never recorded the Loch Ness Monster, so it's a difficult thing to record. But a lot of these other species, we can sort of guess what sounds that they're making. And we have a good idea with a chart like this. So remember, I was talking about ultrasonic sound and subsonic sound and then acoustic sound. So infrasonic are made by things like elephants, some species of bird, giraffes make infrasonic sound. You will record this no matter what. Infrasonic sound you will record, because all the recorders can pretty much record infrasonic sound because it's so low. The acoustic sound is your birds and insects, a lot of insects, as well as a lot of mammals. I just came back from a wolf conference, Wolves Across Borders. You will be picking up wolves. I can almost guarantee it on your recorders. And then we've got ultrasonic sound. And this is where we get this crossover for things like insects and small mammals. I've got bats in here, but most bats are above 20 kilohertz. There are one or two species in Italy which are lower than that. And when we're going right down here, we're meaning fruit bats. Fruit bats make like a tongue click, weird sound, but they're really low. So you can kind of guess what where the species sit on the frequency scale, and that will affect how you're deploying or which recorder you're deploying. So your ultrasonic recorder will record a bit of acoustic sound, and your acoustic recorder will record a bit of ultrasonic sound. So there is an overlap between the two, and we'll come on to this in a little bit more detail. So what I want to look at is what you're recording, the quality of the recording, and some of the settings that we can change. Now, there's a thing called signal to noise ratio, SNR for short. And I thought, shall I put this slide in? And then I took it out, and then I put it back in again. So I've left it in, and I thought I'm going to talk about it anyway. And what the signal to noise ratio looks at is the signal that you want to record against we call it the noise floor, but the sound, the self noise of the recorder. So every sound recorder will make some sort of noise itself, and it could be very, very quiet, and it could be or it could be quite loud, and it matters. So the higher the signal to noise ratio, the better equipped you are to capture faint sounds, things that are far away. And I'm going to just mention some. This may not mean anything to you, but a 6 decibel increase in SNR equates to double the recording distance. Okay, so double the detection range of your recorder. Now, we can't say in meters how much that is, because low frequency sound travels further than high frequency sound. Okay, just to put you in the picture. But I can give you an example that we did an experiment a long time ago, looking at our recorders against other recorders, and there's one that you can get that's about the same price, which is an audio moth. And so this is the micro, and this is an audio moth. And they look the same, you know, we've picked up this bird here and they've picked up this bird here. But the one thing that the micros picked up is this noise down here. Now, this is a bullfrog. And in the same part on the audio moth, it's not there. And it's not there just because it's making too much noise to distinguish between what is the background noise and what is the thing it's trying to record. And so what you want is the biggest distance between the top line and the bottom line. And you can see here that the micro has a bigger difference between the top line and the bottom line. Okay, so that's all it means. And these are different frequencies. So in other words, you've chosen the right recorder, is all I can say. Well done. Recording format. Now, on the Song Meter Mini Bat, there are two recording formats. And what I'm pleading with you is you leave it on the default, which will be WAV, WAV files. The other recording format you can get on there is called ZC. And these make very, very small files, but they remove all the, sounds silly, sound data. And what you're left with are dots on a screen. So it's a sonogram, so it's a pictorial representation of sound, but it's just dots on a screen. There's no sound to it. So leave it on wave, because I think that's probably what you want to record in. But you'll notice that you'll notice when you start going through the menus, we don't support things like MP3 files. So MP3 files are sound files designed for human ears. And what MP3 files do to make them so small is they remove things that it believes humans can't hear. So human hearing range is between 20 hertz and 20 kilohertz. So anything above 20 kilohertz, it doesn't think you can hear, so it will remove. If you have two sounds, one behind the other, it will remove the sound at the back that it thinks you can't hear. But when you're analyzing data for sound analysis, you know, it doesn't matter that you can't hear it, you'll be able to see it on a screen. This is a really important one, sample rate. And I'm going to talk about this for quite a while, because this is something that I think everybody needs to understand what it is, and what your settings are going to be. So I don't know whether you've decided as a group what the settings are going to be. But I thought I'd talk about it. So the best example I can give on sample rate is it's the number of samples of sound it's taking per second. And it's very similar to film. It's the best example I can give. So the more pictures which are taken per second, the better the quality of the movie. Yep. So sound works in the same way. The more samples that we gather, the better the quality of the recording. The higher the sample rate is, though, because we're taking more samples, the bigger the file size and the more battery life it drains. So let's go back to our pictures. So I've got two videos here, and what I've got, I'm going to press play on this one. What I did here was I took a video of a clock in our house. And I took the video, so I was taking a picture every 15 to 20 seconds. And what I got was this nice, smooth, slow, speeded up version of a clock going round. Okay. Now, that's 4 pictures per minute I'm taking. Let's move over to this side, and I've got a guitar string here that I'm going to pluck. And I want to film the vibrations of the guitar string going backwards and forwards. So if I took a picture every 15 seconds, I would just have a string in a different position. Whereas what I've got to do is have lots and lots of pictures per second. So say 20 pictures per second in order to capture that string vibrating. Now, if I had 20 pictures per second to record my clock, I would still get a clock going round. If I did it the other way around and got my 4 pictures per minute and did it on my string, I wouldn't record the string vibrating. So it's the same with sound. The higher the sample rate, the higher the frequency we can record. So I'll give you an example. And we call it digital ordering, audio sampling. And here we have an example of a sound wave. And what we've done here is we've taken lots of samples of that sound wave in order to recreate it. It's like a children's dot-to-dot drawing. So here's a low sample rate and here's a high sample rate. But this is the important thing. The sample rate must be double the frequency to be recorded. Now, this might be, why is Paul telling me all this? It's all to do with what you want to record and the frequencies you want to record at. So, oops, let me go back. So a sample rate of 44 kilohertz, which is CD quality, the maximum frequency you can record is 22 kilohertz. You can't record any higher. 200 would be 100. A sample rate of 500 would be 250. But just look at the disk space that you're using. So this top one here per minute uses 5.29 megabytes per minute you can record in that. If I go up to 384 kilohertz, which is very high, we're doing 46.08 megabytes a minute. That's when you need a 2 terabyte card put into your recorder. We don't record at those high frequencies, but it is important to find out what's the best one to use. So for birds, for most birds, we recommend using 24 kilohertz. So the maximum frequency you can record would be 12 kilohertz. But if you say you want to record insects, which might be going up to, I don't know, 50 kilohertz or 40 kilohertz, then you want a higher sample rate of, say, 96 kilohertz, because you divide that by 2. And I'm going to give you an example of why we don't use the absolute minimum. So, oops. So here, I've got a really low sample rate. So this sample rate is 8 kilohertz. So the maximum frequency I can record is 4 kilohertz or 4,000 hertz. And I'm going to send up a signal that's going to go to 6 kilohertz. So it should end up here. Watch what happens to the signal. This might be very loud in your ears. Okay. As we're watching that signal, you would expect it to keep going, but it can't keep going. And so it reflects back down. Now, this might be a problem. If you were, let's say you were looking at wolf calls, for instance. So wolves are around here. They're about 2 kilohertz. They're howling about here.
Oh,
But you,
sorry.
yeah.
We can't hear the sound in your video.
Yes, I don't understand why that's. Oh, let me just have a quick look and see if I can change that. Let me stop sharing. I'll go back. That one. Share. Include sound. There we go. Hopefully, well, I shall play it again, and we can live with it again. There you go. Is that good? There we go. Okay, so what we're doing here, anything that goes above here is reflected back down. So it can really then muddy or make very unclear your sonograms, because if you've got sounds that are appearing above your maximum sample rate, then they're going to reflect back down here. So if, for instance, we were recording wolves at this 2 kilohertz level here, we've got a sample rate to include wolves. We'll catch our wolves, but maybe we get lots of insects that are about here, and they're going to reflect back down into our wolves and create like a muddy environment when we're doing our analysis. So this is really important. Now, what you need is a standard protocol, I suppose, for all your recorders that are going out. So if 24 kilohertz is you think might be too low, then you can step it up a little bit more in order to make sure that you're not going to get this little reflection. What I would also do is experiment. Put these out in your back gardens, on your balconies, wherever you are, in the office, at work, and just see what happens to some of these sounds. So our mini BAT2, these are the sample rates it can go to. Our ultrasonic microphone is 192 to 500. So we can choose steps in between these two numbers here. The one that I would recommend for the whole of Europe is 256 kilohertz, because the highest bat in Europe is a lesser horseshoe bat, which is 128 kilohertz. So 256, sorry, it's 110 kilohertz. So 256 divided by 2 is 128. So that should pick up all European bats. If we attach an acoustic microphone to the side of it, we can go from 8 kilohertz to 96 kilohertz. If we look at the micro, the acoustic microphone can do 8 kilohertz to 256 kilohertz. It can go really high. So this can record bats, can it not? Surely it can record bats. Yeah, yes and no. It can record bats, but it's not designed. It's not the bat recorder here has triggers. So every single time a bat turns up, it's just going to record the bat and nothing else. If you were to do that with a micro, you would have to record all the time, and you'd just be filling up cards, and then you've got to find the bats in all that data. But to prove it can record bats, here's a micro and here's a mini bat. But you can see down here on the mini bat, it looks fuzzy, but it's because it's in effect more sensitive down here, whereas it's not as sensitive on the micro. So for bats, this is a better recorder, but it can do it. But it can, you look at maybe insects or other things, you know, in this sort of area. And the final setting before we actually start programming things is the gain setting. So we will look at these on the units, but I want to talk about the gain because gain is really important. So the gain is boosts the input level. So in other words, the sound going into a recorder. So if the sound that you want to record is very loud, then you probably want a lower gain. But if you set the level too high, then it's going to distort the call. We'll look at that in a moment. If the sound you want to record is quiet, then you might want to increase the gain. But again, increase the gain might not make it any clearer. My recommendation is leave it on the default. And the reason that I would do that is gain and volume are not the same thing. So gain is the decibel input of something. Volume is the decibel output of something. So, for instance, if you're driving in your car and you've got the radio on and your favorite song appears and you turn the volume up full blast, it just gets louder and you annoy more neighbors, you know. That's volume. If you try to do that with gain, you end up with something called clipping, and well, the best way I can I can demonstrate it is to show you. So I'm a guitarist. I don't know if there's any other guitarists here. And what guitarists love is gain. We love gain. We like rock and roll and things like that. So here I've got two guitar amps, and I've got one set with a low gain and one set with a high gain. So if I put the low gain on, okay, high gain, guitarists love that, and it's really good for music. It's not great for recording animals. So this is a wren, 𝗱𝗲𝗍𝗍, little tiny bird. And this is it with no gain, or with default gain. Okay, and are you ready for this? This is put your fingers in your ears. This is high gain. Oops, I missed. So that's what can happen if you really turn the gain up. You're not necessarily recording more things. It all depends on the environment. So I would leave the gain alone unless there's a real reason that you might want to set that up. Right, enough about sound. Let's do the equipment itself, the reason we're here. Let's do that. So setting up the equipment. It's very similar for both pieces of equipment, which is good. But I'm going to kind of talk about the mini bat 2, and then we'll move on to the micro 2, and we'll keep moving backwards and forwards between them. So the first thing, that it seems very basic, and like Mona said, we can go right the way back, right down to every little aspect of how we set these up. But this is kind of quite important. We need batteries. And the mini bat 2 can work on either 4 or 8 batteries. So I've got a recorder here with 4 batteries in. That we've got one on there with 8 batteries in, but it will work in either oops, 1 block of batteries here or 2 blocks of batteries. Now, things to avoid. There are some things to avoid, and this is one of them. Don't insert the batteries the wrong way. And this might seem like a very, very basic thing, but it can be terrible for your recorder and your fingers and the batteries. So most batteries tend to have 2 colors. So you can see this left-hand side here is black, gold, gold, black, black, gold, gold, black. Whereas this right-hand side, you know, I've intentionally put them in the wrong way. If you've got one of these sides correct, the unit will switch on. But what's happening here is this is basically causing a short circuit. So it will cause the batteries to heat up and often leak, and it can break the recorder. So this is one thing to, if you've got a sheet of paper on things not to do, this should be at the top. You know, when you're setting out a recorder, make sure your batteries are in the right way. It's not an issue on the micro. If you put the batteries in the wrong way on a micro, it won't switch on. So you're okay with the micro. It's just for the mini bat 2. Other things to avoid is this. So we have these little ribbons in order to help you pull the batteries out. And sometimes what you can do is you can trap one between the battery and the connector, and it means that this set of batteries isn't going to work, you know, but it'll still work on this set, but it's obviously going to run out a lot quicker. So just double check, make sure that ribbon's okay. With a micro, it's not really much of an issue because the ribbons are so small. And the third thing not to do is make sure that the ribbon's not hanging outside of the box. It's not being trapped in the box. This is usually, if you're just putting 4 batteries in, you've got a ribbon that's floating about. So make sure it's not trapped in the box, as we have like a rubber seal called a gasket that goes around the edge. And if this ribbon's here, it's like a break in the seal. So if it rains, and I'm from the UK, so it rains a lot here. If it rains, then you get water getting in there. We don't want that. So what I thought we'd do now is I'm going to set up a unit and go through the app. If you want to open up a unit and an app at the same time, you're very welcome to. But I'll do it on a tablet in real time. So I'm going to do that, and I'm hoping this works. Just give me a second while I found you. That's a good thing. Let me open up my tablet. Come on. And hopefully I should be able to share screen. Aha. There we go. Okay, so hopefully I can't see you anymore. So you may have to shout out if things aren't working. Yeah, I can't see.
It's not working.
We still see his slides.
Let me just try something else.
Scusate, abbiamo un attimo un problema, cerchiamo di risolverlo prima possibile.
Appuntamenti.
Hi. I don't know what happened then. I got kicked out. Is it possible to let me share screen again? It's decided that I can't share again. Thank you. I'm going to see if this works this time. I obviously made my computer too hot. Right. Oh, yeah, accept. Okay. So I can't.
Okay, now it's working.
It's working. You can see my iPad. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Oh, well, thank you so much. I can't see any of you now because it takes over both my screens. I don't know why. So basically what I've done is I've hit this smconfig. So this is a free app which goes with our recorders. And you can see here that I've got some recorders which I've logged into this iPad. Every single time it picks up a new recorder, it keeps it on the log, and you can delete them off if you want to. But what it's doing is it's telling me when I've seen a recorder last. So you can see here that this one's 1 hour ago, this is 130 days ago, and so on. And I can check what the status was like the last time I saw it. So if I click the status, you can see here that how much battery, how much memory it had used, the recorder model, the name of it, the serial number. With a mini bat, you even get the temperature as well. And then on both of them, you get the battery life. And then it's got my schedule that I was set up. Now, I'm going to go back. This will all become a little bit clearer when I start doing certain things to the recorder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the recorder. I don't know whether you can see me as well or whether it's just the screen, but I've got the recorder, and all I'm going to do is switch it on. Do nothing more than switch it on, and what you'll see is one of these, I think it's this bottom one, has changed just now. So what it's doing now, it's the app or your phone is reading the recorder, and we can't program it, but if I now click on the status button, it will give me the status right now, what it's doing right at this moment. And it hasn't used any memory because I've had it switched off for an hour. It's got the up-to-date temperature. It's very nice and warm in this office as well. So I'm going to go back. What I want to do is I want to be able to program this recorder. And in order to program the recorder, I have to hold the pair button down. So on the recorder, there's only, I'm using a mini bat 2 at the moment. And I'll do the same thing on a micro in a moment. But there's only 2 buttons on here. There's the pair button and function button. And I'm going to hold it, press and hold, and I'm going to hold it for about 5 seconds, which seems like a really long time. There we go. And you'll notice now on screen, I've got the word pair. And if I click pair, what the unit now does, it takes the time, date, and location from my phone and puts it into the recorder. So it now knows where it is on the planet. It knows what the time is and the date is. It knows things such as when sunrise and sunset occurs. And now I can configure it. So if I hit the configure button, which is that green button there, I get lots and lots of options. The first one I've got here is I can give it a name. So recorder name. So I was at the Bat Conservation Trust conference when I used this. So if I click on the name, we can delete it and we can call it Paul. We'll call it Paul 1. Okay. And so what's going to happen now when I press or hit return, it's got Paul 1. Every single one of my recordings will start Paul 1. Okay, so I know it's from this device. The next option is ultrasonic settings. And if I give that a click, bear in mind we're on a bat recorder here. I get lots and lots of options. And all of a sudden, you know, it becomes a little bit daunting, all these options. The top one is the recording format. And remember, if I give this a click, I can record in 2 recording formats, either zero crossing or full spectrum, or I can do both at the same time. What we actually want is full spectrum. It's the best quality recording we can get. So I'm going to leave it on full spectrum. Click OK. We can change our recorder to have non-triggered recordings. Well, what that means is it'll just record constantly. Now, for bats, we don't want that. We only want it to record when there's a bat, because this is going to be recording at such a high sample rate. Okay, so we want that switched off. I missed the sample rate out. I apologize. If I give that a click, I can choose between 3 sample rates. And really, this top one here is good enough for Italy. I think it's good enough for all of Europe, 256 kilohertz. We have a minimum trigger frequency. So this is the lowest frequency sound it thinks is a bat. Now, in Italy, you have some low bats, they go down to about 10 kilohertz. So you might want to go down to 10 kilohertz because we get in some really low frequency bats. You will get a lot more insects being recorded, because insects around that 8 to 12 kilohertz range, we get quite a few. So you might want to change these settings. I'll leave it on 10. The recording length is the maximum time that a recording will go on for. So we've got 15 seconds. It's quite normal for bat recordings, because bats tend to fly in and out of the detection range of the recorder. We also have trigger window, and we've also got, so the trigger window is how long there is for a period of silence. So if you imagine a bat flies in and out of a detection range, how long before we go, that bat's gone away? We can save noise files. So these detectors are quite intelligent, and they know when it's a bat and when it's not a bat. So if you want everything that's making a noise above 10 kilohertz every single time that happens, then you could save all those files. If you don't, then you can turn it off. And then we've got, remember, gain. Do we want to add any gain? Probably not. This may sound like a strange request, but can someone just say hello that they can still see my screen? Because I can't see. I don't know if I've frozen again or anything like that.
Hello.
Hello, that's good. That's good. I know you're
second.
still. I know you're still there. This covers up where you're supposed to be, so I can't see or hear you. I have to unshare and things. Thank you so much.
We're here. And sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
If I just wanted to know if I understand correctly. So the fact that there's a maximum recording time implies that after the time window you showed us, the trigger window.
Yeah.
So after 3 seconds of not recording anything above 10 kilohertz, the recording stops.
Correct.
Okay, so we might have a 5 seconds recording for bats.
Correct. So the bat files will vary from about 3 seconds to a maximum of 15 seconds. So if you imagine your bat turns up and it flies around for 5 seconds and goes away for 2 seconds, but then comes back for 5 seconds, it will keep recording. But after 5 seconds, if your bat goes away, say for 4 seconds, or in this case 3 seconds, it will end the recording. And then if your bat then comes back, it'll start a new recording. So it's a way of sort of measuring bats per hour, I suppose. Providing you're consistent throughout all your recorders, this won't make any difference. And this is the default, so you might want to just leave it on the default. Or if there's specific protocols in Italy, I know there was some guidance being developed when I was in Italy, I think 2018, something like that. And it was that I went to the Italian Mammal Society conference, which is brilliant. But I don't know if that got any further. So I don't know if there's a standard that we have a standard set up in the UK, and I know some other Germany has the same, but I know Italy was developing theirs, but I don't know if there is one. If there is, and you want me to make it so it fits in with that, then I'll happily do that for you and help you out with it. It's not a problem.
I don't know that either. So
no.
But thank you. And sorry, another question. I'm curious. And is there a delay between the end of a recording and the start of a next one?
So in this, if you had a bat that flew for 20 seconds, that's a good question. If you had a bat that flew for 20 seconds, you would get a 15-second recording, and then you would get a 5-second plus 3 seconds on top. So you get an 8-second recording, because it'll keep recording for 3 seconds after the last noise of that bat. So you would end up with 2 recordings. And what you can do with this, because with bat movements, you can't, supposing you get 100 bat passes, so 100 bats go past, or you get 100 recordings, is that one bat going past 100 times, or is it 100 bats going past once? We don't know, because it's just sound. But what we can gather from this is how batty, if you like, a specific area is. So you can say, well, this has got an intense period of bat activity, say an hour after sunset every night. So it could be very close to a roost and 100 bats are coming out, or you could have another location which is very has lots of bat activity at midnight, and that could be a feeding place, and it might just be one bat that's going around. So it gives you this level of intensity for or gives you an idea of intensity for your bat recordings.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome, and keep the questions coming, because I won't answer everything. I'm trying to predict things, but you guys know your sites better than me. So we've done ultrasonic settings. Now, if I'd have plugged an acoustic microphone in, I could then play with the acoustic settings, but we don't have an acoustic microphone plugged in. Location and time zone. So if I give that a click, you shouldn't need to do much with this, but it's got my address. In fact, this is my next door neighbor. So if you want to know where I live, that's where I live. And I can zoom in and we can find out exactly where I live. Now, there we go. In the village of Hope, next to Penny's Cars. That's where I'm talking to you from right now. Okay. I can change this manually, but whenever I'm connecting via my phone, it will automatically fill this in. So hopefully you shouldn't need to do that. We have a transect option. So this is for if we want to do a driven or walk transect with a recorder. It's unlikely in your case that you want to do that, but basically what would happen if I did that, I would keep my phone connected via Bluetooth to my recorder, and then go on my driven transect or walk transect, and it will plot where all the bats are. So it put a GPS location on each bat call. This is probably the next most important feature, which is delay start. So let's say you've got hundreds of these units and you want them all to start on the same date. So exactly the same time you want them all to switch on. So if I click delay start, I have to switch it on at the top right hand corner here. But then I can say, well, I don't want to do anything until the 30th of September. And that is the first day that the unit will switch on. So it will sit there, not switch on until the 30th of September. And I can choose any date, obviously, but I'm going to switch that off. Done. Bluetooth beacons, what our recorders are doing are constantly sending out a signal. They're sending out a pulse. And that signal is a very weak Bluetooth signal. It hardly uses any battery at all, but I can switch that off if I want to try and get a little bit more out of my batteries. I would leave it on. And the reason I would leave it on is because of this. You know, if we go back to that main screen, the first screen I came up with, and it's when it saw my recorder last. So imagine you've put a recorder out, 2 or 3 weeks later, you go back and you think, I can't remember where I put it. So if you're just walking around the area and you start seeing the words just now, you know you're within 10 meters of that recorder. Okay, so I would always leave it on just so you can find recorders again. So I'm going to hit the configure button and we'll keep going through some of these options. I'm going to talk about these two in a moment, but I'm going to talk about this bit down here. So what we could do with doing now is to set up a schedule. You know, when's this unit going to switch on? When's it going to switch off? And if I hit this drop down menu, you can see here that I've got a number of options. Oops, I've got a number of options. This is a bat recorder, so it's trying to predict what the things that you want to do are with bats. So we could record 24 hours a day, record bats from sunset to sunrise, or this is the most popular one, record bats 30 minutes before sunset to 30 minutes after sunrise. So I'm going to click that one. Bats tend to emerge before sunset, and the UK standard is this. So that's why it's in there, but a lot of people use this all over the world. It's a good standard. But what we've done here is we've created a little block of information, and this little block of information is saying I'm using an ultrasonic microphone, and at the start time minus 30 minutes, always record until an end time of sunrise plus 30 minutes. And remember, I said I was going to show you what these two things up here meant, this estimated battery and C card life, what that is. If I give that a press, it's going to tell me when my card's going to be full and when my batteries are going to be depleted. Now, I've got rechargeable batteries in here, so it doesn't really know what batteries I've got, but it's going to say that my SD card will be full on September the 28th in 2025. Okay, so I can change all this, but it gives me a rough idea of when my batteries are going to be out. But if I look at this calendar, I go show on calendar, what this is showing me is where sunrise is and where sunset is on each day. And if I scroll down, you can see it's when it's going to switch on and when it's going to switch off. So it's switching on at sunset minus 30 minutes until sunrise plus 30 minutes. And if I keep going across, you can see that these sunrise and sunsets change. There we go. So it's always keeping in with those sunrise sunset times. Okay, let's go back. Now, let me assume that this is not right. It doesn't work for Italy. You know, we don't get any bats, say, after sunrise, and I want to save as much battery as possible. I can change this. So maybe at the end time, if I look at this, I want to have no minutes after sunrise. So this is going to finish at sunrise. Now, when I show it on a calendar, it finishes at sunrise. Okay, so I can change these. Let me go back again. I can also add another block to do something else. So I don't know why I would ever do this, but let me just say that, let's say at midday, oops, at 12 o'clock, there we go. So I've put time in here. So if I look at this drop down menu, I can do time, sunrise or sunset. Okay, so I'm going to put a time at midday, always record until time 1300. And I've created another block of time. When I show this on a calendar now, you can see I've got a little blob of recording in the middle of the night. Whenever I'm making a change to anything on this screen, it's automatically loading it into my recorder. So I'm not having to send it every single time I make a change. It's good to have a play with these first. As soon as you start making a change, you'll see 3 green lights on the front and they'll all flash to show you that you're making that change. If I'm really happy with this setup, let's say I really like this setup and I'd like to use this on lots of other recorders, I can save these changes. So if I go to the save, I can give it a name. So I'm going to call it, we'll call it Italy. And click OK. So it's saved it as Italy. Now, just supposing I get another recorder and I want to load something onto it. What you would do is pair with it. Okay, so we go back to the screen, you'd hit configure, and then you can see at the top up here, we've got this load button, and you'll see that I've got lots of setups that I could put in there. But if I hit Italy, load configuration, it's then loaded it straight onto my my new recorder, and you can go and check it out because there it is. You know, it's all there waiting for you. So it means once you get one or two of these configurations sorted, you can then load it up on systems really, really easily. We have one more menu which I want to look at, and then we'll move on to a micro, which is called the utilities menu. If you hit the utilities menu, we can do things such as test the microphone. Now I'm looking at an ultrasonic microphone here, but we have an ultrasonic tester, which tests this microphone in real time and will give you if it's working or not. So it gives you a dB range of whether it's working. I go back into utilities menu. We can format the SD card. So hit format, hit yes. It's now formatting the SD card for me. Whenever you're using one of these recorders, always format the SD card from your phone or your device. Don't do it from a computer, because Windows and Macs, they do strange things to SD cards. So always, and that's any device, camera traps, everything, always format it on the device. It's always better. I'm not going to do this, but we can load the factory defaults. We've also got load firmware or configuration from the card. So if we've come up with some new firmware for the recorder, it's on our website usually. You put it onto an SD card, plug it into the device, and then hit this, and it will load it up, and it would be that new configuration straight on there, or new firmware straight on there. And that's basically the app. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to switch this recorder off. Okay, so I've switched it off, and I'm going to get a micro, and I'm going to switch the micro on. So you can see now that the BCT one, when it saw it last, was it's ticking up now in seconds, but I've got this new one which says just now. So I can configure it. So if I hold the pair button down, I get the word pair, and then it'll take the time and date and put it into the recorder. Now sometimes it will say time zone mismatch, which is what I was hoping this one would do, but I've obviously paired with it. So you just need to make sure it's the right time, and we can configure it. So I can give it a name again, so it's exactly the same. Let's call it we'll call it Paul 2. Paul 2. There we go. We have a sample rate. So you can see here that the sample rate, it does go up to 256 kilohertz. 24, this is the default. There's 24,000 hertz. Maximum record length. Now, our bat detector used triggers. So it would sit there until there was a noise and it would trigger. This can't use triggers. Okay, it doesn't have triggers on them for a start. An acoustic sound is constant. It's always making a noise. So we can't use triggers. So you might want to choose a suitable recording length. Now I've put 1 minute in here. We can go right the way up to like an hour, I think. Yeah, an hour. I'm going to leave it on 1 minute because I believe that you're doing acoustic indices, and acoustic indices, a 1 minute file is like a perfect, it's a good length for acoustic indices. It's already sorted for you, but you are going to end up with thousands of files. Well, you're going to end up with 60 a minute. So it's going to be lots and lots of 1 minute recordings. And there is no gap between the end of one recording and the start of another. It's not, there's not anything, no gap, but it's up to you what you use. But if you're using acoustic indices, that might be a standard to use. We have gain. I'd leave the gain alone. The location and time zone, we have that again. Delay, start. This is all the same as before. And then we have a schedule. Now, I don't know what you're planning on your schedules, but you can do some funky things with this. So I assume you're recording day and night. I honestly don't know whether you just want to record the dawn chorus, but let's assume that you want to record 24 hours a day. So we'll record 24 hours a day. Now, again, I've got a 128 gigabyte card in here, which I think it needs formatting. So I'll do that. Let's go to utilities and format the SD card, because it's quite interesting on how long this is going to last for. 24 hours a day with 128 gigabytes. Again, I've got rechargeable batteries in here, so it might not read the batteries. It takes a long time to format a big card like this. So let's estimate the card and battery life. So the card will be full if it's recording all night and all day on October the 15th. But my batteries are only going to last until September the 19th. So, because they're flat. The problem I've got is I'm recording 24 hours a day. Do I want to do that? Maybe I want to sample time instead. So where it says duty cycle here, oops, sorry, here, I'm pointing with my finger, you can't see that. So I've got time, start at midnight, always record. And what always means it's constantly recording. If I give this a click, I can do something called cycle. And I can say how many minutes I want on and how many minutes I want off. So I'm going to say 1 minute on, 4 minutes off. So what I'm doing now is just taking 1 minute in every 5. And if I look at that on a calendar, oops, there we go. It looks really funny because it's 1 minute on, 1 minute off. You know, I've got this weird, there's sunrise, there's sunset. You can see what it's doing every single day. But now let me look at my battery life. And so my card's going to be full in February next year. Okay, and ignore my batteries because they are quite low. But it means that you're going to get a lot longer out of your cards and your batteries, because the recorder, when we say it lasts for 280 hours, it's 280 recording hours. And it's an estimate because there's different batteries. Temperature really affects batteries, so there could be other things like that. But again, it's all the same. We can format SD cards, we can load previous settings. There's not much difference because it's the same app, so it works well on both of these. But you could get a perfect setting and then, oops, and then save it, and I could call it Paul 2. And if I try and load this up, oops, I don't think I saved that properly. Oh, I did. I can then load it back up on my system, and I might have put too many things in here to do it. Let's have a look. Oh, Paul 2, there we go. I just did it too quickly, so I could load that one up. And you'll notice that it wouldn't load up Paul 1. Remember I did that one for the mini bat? It's because it knows it's not a bat detector. It can't do the thing that we're asking it to do, so it can't load that schedule up. That's the word I'm thinking of. The other thing as well is we can check the live status of the recording, and you'll notice on this, sorry, there's been an upgrade since I've done this, but as I'm speaking, you can see there's an audio level, and the audio level is going up and going down, and it's just me clicking my fingers. It's now not recording because I'm doing 1 minute in every 5. But you get the idea. You can actually test the microphone of these recorders as well. I just want to take a scenario. I'm just going to unpair this. So as soon as I unpair it, I can walk away from it. If I forget to unpair it, it's fine, because as soon as I walk too far away, it will lose the connection anyway. The pairing and unpairing is not essential. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just stop sharing a second. Oops, let's just switch this off so I'm not sharing that. That's good. Hopefully you can see me. Hello. What I thought I'd do is just quickly talk through what I do when I'm picking these units up or putting them out. Now, it's easy enough just to get a unit and put it out somewhere on site. But when it may be that you're leaving one of these in a particular place for a long period of time. So all you're doing is going in there, taking the batteries out, putting an USB card in. Excuse me. Apologies, we've had a delivery arriving. So you might want to put new batteries in and change the SD card. So this is the order that I would do that. So you open up the unit. The first thing I would do is switch the unit off. Okay, always switch the unit off when you're removing or putting in an SD card. It's the same as ejecting a hard drive properly. Okay, so switch the unit off, take the SD card out, put a new one in, remove your batteries, put new batteries in, turn it on, format the card. Because you want to also format the card with new batteries. If your batteries halfway through formatting, there isn't enough power in them, then it's going to corrupt the card and it's all going to go wrong. So that's the order that I would do things in, is switch it off, take the SD card out, put a new SD card in, new batteries, switch it on, and then pair with it, format the card, and then you can just leave it. You're good. It should remember what it's doing previously. You might want to pair with it just to make sure the clock is absolutely bang on as well. Right. There's not much more. You're okay. Oh, I'm not sharing. Paul. There we go. So, well done for getting through that bit. And what I would also do as well is play with them. Take one home, play with it, put it out, practice with it. So, where to deploy them? Well, you probably know where you've got these places already set up, but it's different putting a dot on a map and then going out in the field and trying to record and putting it exactly where you need to, where the dot is. So obviously you need to put it somewhere close to the thing you want to record. Away from thieves and away from animals is usually my recommendation. This is me, by the way, dangling from a crane. This was apparently a safe way to put a recorder up. You can see the fear in my face. Anyway, so there's an ideal world. And if we're dealing with a mini bat, this is what would be perfect. So you want your recorder away from anything that can reflect sound. So sound will bounce off things. And this is really just for the mini bat. Bats, it's more important that you keep it away from a reflective surface. A lot of people attach them to a pole. They put a stake in the ground and attach it to a pole that way, close to whatever habitat that you want to record. And don't point the microphones up. Point them slightly either flat like this one here, so like horizontal, or slightly up. let me just stop sharing just so I can point this out and so you can see the recorder. So these microphones don't just pick up sound in the direction of the microphone's pointing. So in other words, you don't have to talk into a microphone like this. They pick up sound all the way around the unit. So all the way around the recorder, they'll pick up sound. So you can put it straight up if you want, but if water lands on here, it can't hear until the water's gone. So the best way to do it is put it at a slight angle or like this. It will happily record. Water can run off, it's not a problem. So just when you're putting this one out, make sure it's on a slight angle. Let me get back to that. I'm sharing again. Excellent. This is an ideal world. A micro, so micro 2, we want it facing away from the wind. You want the wind to hit the back of it and facing horizontally. So let me stop sharing again so you can see my screen. So there's the microphone on the front of the recorder. If the wind's blowing this way, have it so it's at the back of the recorder or on the other side of a tree. We don't necessarily have to attach it to a pole or anything like that. Let me share again. Oops. Now, this is the perfect world that we can put it on a stick. We can never do this, you know, and well, in the UK you can't. Someone will steal it. So you can only put it in the best place you can place it. So this was next to a footpath in a national park where I live, and you can just see my recorder sticking out here, and it was the only place I could put it. And it's fine, it's not ideal, but you might want to, whenever you deploy a recorder, to take a picture of it and to note down some things which could affect the sound. So this would really affect the sound. You're only getting, usually these pick up a bubble of sound all the way. Oh, am I sharing? I am sharing. Usually these would pick up a bubble of sound all the way around them, but this one, the wall will stop the sound like passing through it. Away from animals. Animals don't like us. We might like animals, but they hate human beings. This is the sound of a, I'm going to turn it down a bit, a long-tailed macaque eating my microphone. There you go. So animals will try and destroy these things. It still works, that recorder. But, you know, if there's a field full of cows, they will be drawn to this and they will try and stamp on them and eat them. So just be aware of, you know, the environment. If there's a farm there, get them up high is usually a good way of protecting them. And if it's windy,
Sorry, Paul, there is a question.
go for it.
Can't mini 𝗏𝗍𝗶 be used in the woods?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, they can be used in pretty much any environment. The woods, it'll work just as well as out in the open. Of course, it's a good question because sound travels differently in these environments. And if you're talking about a mini bat, the bats behave differently in these environments. So in a cluttered environment, which what we would call a woodland, you get different species of bat to an open environment. And the calls of those bats tend to cover a lot of frequencies at once. So they cover a huge range of frequencies. The more frequencies that they cover, the more detail they get of their surroundings. So you get these, it might be the same bat species, one in an open environment and one in a woodland, but the calls will look very different just because of the environment that they're in. Same with the micro, it works perfectly well in a woodland. The thing that you're going to get in a woodland environment on a micro is the sound of the trees. sort of making a noise in the wind. You get a lot of that. But when it's not windy, you get this perfect recording environment because there's no wind and there's no rain really getting down to the bottom. So it's a lovely place to record in. So yes, they'll work in woodlands. And of course, the perfect thing to attach it to is a tree. You know, it's the best thing to attach it to. But if you're attaching it to a tree, I like to attach it to a branch that's going out this way. So I attach it to a branch that's going out that way, because then you've got less reflection. If you touch it to like the trunk of the tree, the stem, then sound can hit the trunk and then back into the microphone. But if that's all you've got to attach it to, that's good. You know, that's fine. It's fine. These are like perfect. If you could put it in a perfect place. So yeah, but they do work in woodlands really well.
Thank you.
No, thank you. If it's windy, so this is a good example. So this is a recorder on is quite a windy day, and it was a recorder that I haven't got one here, has two microphones, and I pointed one microphone into the wind and one microphone away from the wind. So this top sound here is the microphone into the facing the wind. Oh,
Sorry, we can't hear.
I can't hear. I've got to stop sharing and start sharing again. I think it's because yes, I went away and came back. It forgot me. Right, we'll try again. So you can hear that low rumble. Yeah, that low rumble is wind. We can hear birds and things as well. But it'd be nicer if it didn't have that low rumble. So if you point it away from the wind, that low rumble has really dropped, and we can still hear those birds. And you're actually picking up. I can hear it. You might not, but I'm picking up crickets and other things within that sound. So when we're looking at windy environments, it's really difficult to say, you know, which way is the wind blowing, but you get clues especially if you know the place you're putting these out, and you're going to know your landscape better than I will ever know it. But for here, I'm in the Peak District National Park, which is very windy, and we get trees that look like this because the wind is just blowing in one direction. So I would put my recorder on this side of the tree, just because it's more protection, or this side of the wall, just to make sure that I'm protecting it as much as possible, or even just facing the microphone away from the wind. I use this recorder because you can see the microphone better than the micro. So I came up with a checklist, which I thought would be useful. So this, I think, is what you would do on a first deployment. So you select your recorder and set up based on your project. So are you doing bats or other things? Install the batteries and make sure they've been installed correctly. Make sure they are in the right way around. And I should have this in red flashing lights. And make sure that ribbon, that where you can pull the batteries out, is not covering a terminal or hanging outside of the box. Switch the unit on, open up the app, pair with the unit, and then select whatever configuration you want, name the recorder, update any settings you want to set, select or edit your schedule, unpair, deploy, leave it out. Okay, so I think this is probably what most people will do on a first time. This is the first time putting it out. And really what I should put in at the bottom there is just check, make sure it's working. When you're changing SD cards and batteries, switch the unit off. Make sure it's switched off. remove the SD card, install a new SD card, switch the unit on, pair, select the configuration option from the app, select the utilities menu from the top right hand corner and format the SD card, wait for the format to finish, change any settings, unpair with the device, deploy, and check again. And I mean, obviously, if you're changing batteries as well, make sure the batteries are in the right way around. I mean, I think those need to be printed out and, you know, put with the units if you're giving them people, just to make sure that they're going through that checklist, even if it's ticking them off. If you're putting 10 of these out, it's very easy to forget one or to become complacent. I also have 2 boxes with me for SD cards. I have fresh SD cards and old SD cards. So old SD cards are ones I'm taking out and taking back to the lab, and my fresh ones are ones to go in, and I've got them in separate boxes, so I know it's where it's come from. One of the other things that the units will have, because they have the GPS location and the name of the unit, because you can program the name, you know where they come from. If that all goes wrong, and I just want to oh, where have I gone? Stop sharing for a second. If that all goes wrong, embedded in every file is this. There you go, which is the barcode. That number is in every single one of the files. So if it all goes wrong and you go, oh, I didn't give it a name, or I didn't write down where it came from, you've got the GPS and you've got the name of the number on the recorder. So you'll be able to trace those files back to where they were before. Let me just go for the last 2 slides. There's lots of resources on our website as well. So please check out our website. There's user guides. We've got training courses and webinars. We've got a webinar coming up on, is it Thursday? It's Thursday. Mona will fill you in about the webinar. And if you need me to run a training again, similar to this, I'll happily do it again. If you want me to help you with everybody with a recorder in hand, I'll happily do that. We're on the same time zone. It's really easy for me. And as Mona knows, I call this work avoidance. I don't have to do proper work if I'm doing this. This is nice work. So have a look at the website. And as I say, we do have these webinars and training. All the old webinars are on our website, and they're quite good fun. And there's one specifically on acoustic indices, which I know you're maybe covering as well, just to give you some ideas. And you can look at, just fast forward to the speakers. You don't have to listen. I host these and you have to listen to me talking. So you can fast forward me and just listen to the parts that you need to listen to. And I think that's it. I'll stop sharing. And sorry that went on a long time.
Ci sono domande? Se volete approfittare in questo momento, fatevi avanti. Nel frattempo io vi ricordo che la registrazione poi sarà disponibile, quindi potrete riascoltarla e rivederla in qualsiasi momento tramite il nostro sito Scubla. Allora, vediamo, c'è una domanda. 2 domande. Allora. Paul, you can read
Yeah, I can. Yeah,
Okay.
I've got. So, do you have any suggestions to save mics from ants or other insects? They usually have having rest inside fluffy microphones. So, these recorders don't have fluffy microphones. So this one is just this tiny little. I'll try and put that tiny little hole. That's the microphone. So hopefully no ants or insects. And this microphone, for the bat microphone, is the same sort of thing. It has this like sort of mesh on it. If you were to put an acoustic microphone in this side, then we have a fluffy microphone. And the thing that I don't know about ants and insects so much, birds like to peck the foam off, and they really like that foam. And this was actually at a bat conference, and there was a whole talk on which type of chili sauce you could put on the microphone cover, what was the best one to stop things eating it. But for ants so much, I don't have many problems with them, but Mona's has probably got more experience with the tropics than I do, or warmer climes than the UK.
I think we have to see. I'll try. I don't know.
Ok, bisogna autorizzarlo.
I can just.
C'è una persona che ha alzato la mano e quindi Giacomo
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, great. Do SD cards need to meet certain minimum specification to work with this device?
They used to, but I think all cards are now that specification. But what we would recommend is that you go for a good brand, SanDisk, Kingston, those big brands. We found with one of our recorders that somebody was saying that the batteries weren't lasting very long, and we couldn't understand why they were not lasting very long. And we then found out that they got a really cheap SD card, and it was drawing about 50% more power than it should. So we'd always recommend good quality brands. I mean, I think I use SanDisk for everything, but SanDisk, Kingston, those good brands, and they're now no longer very expensive. I think a 64 gigabyte SanDisk card is, 10 euros, if that. So yeah, they're not hugely expensive, I don't think, but good quality.
Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, I've noticed another question. I haven't done any bioacoustics work yet, but I'm planning to try something on voles. Excellent. I also know quite a few people who are very keen on this topic, and they'll be gathering next June for the Italian Mammals Society conference. I'll put my name down before Mona does, which I think you also mentioned. Sorry for the off topic, but would you perhaps be interested in joining as a sponsor? Let's go. Like Mona asked that. The one thing that I would say, though, because you mentioned voles and bioacoustics with voles and those small mammals, they do call a little bit higher than most things. So they'll be calling it about 25, 30 kilohertz. There's a really good book. It's UK only, but it's well worth looking at. And I've got it here, which is this one. And it's terrestrial mammals of Britain and Ireland, but it does have lots of vole and rat calls and things like that in it. It's a really cool book. And Stuart Newson is one of the authors, is speaking at our webinar about this subject on Thursday. So that tied in really well. But yes, please be in touch about the Mammal Society in Italy. I really enjoyed it when I came last time. It was brilliant fun. So yeah, please connect with us. And I hope you managed to understand me through my accent as well.
Hi, this is Mona.
Hi,
Valentina,
Mona.
I took your contact information. We can talk about the Italian Mammal Conference and sponsorship.
She's just done that. She's just done that, and I'll send her an email. And I'll copy you in.
But I also wanted to say your price for 10 gigabyte card or 36 gigabyte cards, Paul, is a little low. They are more expensive than 10 euros for a good quality card. Lastly, the question about ants. I had spoken with a customer in Hawaii. They had a lot of ants that were coming in the tropical region. They had a lot of ants trying to get in the recorder. It is up to you to decide if this is something from an environmental perspective you want to do, but they would put mothballs inside the recorder. And they say that the smell of the mothballs, the ants don't like it. So this is not something we have tested. We have not tested this. This was from a customer when we had some engagement at a conference, and they were giving advice as a way to prevent the ants from coming into the recorder. So I would say test it, see if your Italian ants like it or not. But this was something that was suggested to me at a conference around the tropics.
I knew you'd know the answer to that.
Ci sono altre domande?
Hi, yes. So mine is not really, I mean, it's half question, half a note. So it happens to a colleague of mine that when she was retrieving one of the instruments, the Micro 2, she said that the device was probably recording when they pair with the app in the phone.
Yeah.
And suddenly the app said that there were 0 recording and 0 disk space usage. And so they kind of panicked a bit, thinking they deleted everything. And so they were kind of scared, afraid of that. But then later on, they found out that the data were still there on the SD card. So this is half a question for you if this is, I mean, there is some suggestion on that, and half a note for the other people listening. Don't freak out. Data will be there at the end.
Yeah, I think
Thank
this.
you.
Yeah, it happened to me as well, and I went and picked one up, and I'm going, oh, it's not recorded anything, and my file says we had a thing on my SD card that says dirty, which means it seems to be corrupt, and I plugged it in to my computer. It was all fine. All the data was there. I think it might have been a firmware update. So I think there was a firmware update to update the recorders. So this happens less and less. But you know, we fix things that people tell us about. So it's your feedback is really, you know, we really need that. We fix things, but we could accidentally make something worse that we don't know about, and then we fix that. We call it, well, the two engineers that do this call it whack-a-mole. So you hit one problem on the head and 2 more pop up. So but if you do get problems like that, I always have a laptop with me whenever I go anywhere, and I download data when I'm there. But yeah, just make sure that it has actually recorded, because it's likely that it will have. It'll be the app that's lying to you. But it's a really good point, and it shouldn't happen that often, hopefully.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was a good question, a good comment, really.
Bene, se non ci sono altre domande, ringrazierei tutti quanti, in particolare Paul per la presentazione e Mona per essere stata qui oggi con noi. E niente, grazie a tutti e alla prossima.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you
much.
very much.
Grazie, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Grazie a 𝗱𝗍𝗹.
Grazie anche a 𝗱𝗍𝗹, giusto?
Grazie a voi.